Welcome to the Sharon Decker podcast, where we share stories of who we love, what we love, and places we love in Western North Carolina. So settle in, listen up, and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you joined us today on the Sharon Decker podcast. Each week I try to bring you good stories of great people who are doing amazing things in Western North Carolina. And you might think it's interesting that the individual I'm going to introduce to you today doesn't live in Western North Carolina, as we think about it, west of Charlotte, but in Gastonia. I want you to meet Susanna Kavanaugh. Susanna, it's great to see you.
It's good to see you, Sharon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've shared with so many of our viewers is that folks have come from all over the country, in fact, all over the world, to help us out in Western North Carolina over the last year and a half after Hurricane Helene. And you're one of those people. And so I learned about you through a mutual friend. He said, "You're not going to believe what this lady's doing." And it was one thing to come help us out. It's another thing when I look at all that you have done to help families and children, not only in Gastonia, but in the entire region. So I wanted to start by saying thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Susanna started a nonprofit in Gastonia called The Least of These Carolinas. And I want you just to begin by telling us about the nonprofit, what you do, and maybe even as importantly, why you do it.
So, yes. So I run a nonprofit called Least of These Carolinas, and it is to impact the quality of life for children that are facing foster and kinship care. And the reason I do it is because I was a foster parent. And so it's very near and dear to my heart. And we got started, my husband and I, probably in like 2011 or so in our foster parenting journey. And we realized really quick that, first of all, these children are pretty invisible. Nobody really sees them, and that they needed more support than the government is able to give. And so how could we support that? And honestly, I didn't have this big vision of going statewide. I just had a vision of, hey, can we just help the kids in Gaston County? And what does that look like?
Right.
And so we started Least of These Gaston, actually. Before it was Least of These Carolinas, it was Least of These Gaston. And quickly after that, we saw the needs of these children, and we decided that it shouldn't matter where they live. It shouldn't matter what county they come from, that if we can serve them, we should say yes, and we should serve them.
Yeah. Susanna, you said something so importantly there about these children are often invisible. Talk about that a little bit.
I just find that in our society that if you don't know about them, if you're not educated about them, then you don't think about them. You don't think about them. And so until somebody like Least of These or me comes and speaks at wherever and tells you about them, then it's kind of like, well, we can't unsee that now.
Right.
But I don't know what they think. I don't know if people think we don't have an issue with that. And so part of my job, I feel like, is just to educate people, realize that there's over 10,000 kids in North Carolina that are in foster care. Do you understand that 480 kids come into foster care every day across the United States?
Wow.
It is a huge number.
Yeah, just think about that. Over 10,000 in North Carolina alone right now, and over 480 a day in homes all across the country. And it can be for any number of reasons, abandonment, but it might be drugs in the home or domestic violence. There's so many reasons parents are killed or a parent dies and the parent can't handle it anymore. A lot of different reasons. It doesn't really matter the reason. It just matters that there are children that don't have homes.
Right.
So tell me about the Least of These Carolinas. And you really, part of your objective is to share the story of foster children, to encourage parents to get involved in this movement of care for children who need homes on a temporary basis. And sometimes, as in your case, you might end up adopting a child. I've heard that story so many times because you just find a match that really is meant to be where they are. Talk to me a little bit about the programs that you have, because I know you've done some very special things in communities all across the Carolinas.
Yeah, so we started off with our Bag of Hope program. And so the Bag of Hope does so many things for these children, but usually a child is given a black trash bag and they're told to pack their things in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
And that is only if their biological parents will allow them to pack anything. And then as a foster parent on the receiving end, when the child arrives, it's usually a trash bag of things that you can't use. It's not things that are helpful. If you're taken from school, then you don't get a trash bag at all. If you're taken from a home where there's drugs and that kind of thing, like a meth lab home, you can't ever go get anything.
Right.
And so we replaced that with a large black duffel bag, and we actually embroidered the child's name on the bag in their
Oh,
favorite
wow.
color.
Yeah.
And so one of our core values is to be intentional. And so we find out their name, we find out their favorite color, we find out what do they like, what do they not like, and we want to make sure that whatever we put in that bag is curated just for them. And we
Yeah.
want them when they open that bag to be like, how did these people know that my favorite color
Oh,
was pink and that I love
feels so
Barbie? And
special.
so we
Yeah.
want them to feel special. And
Yeah.
so we started off with kind of bag of hope, and
Beautiful.
then it was kind of like, well, what could we do next? What else can we do? And so Christmas is a really hard time, honestly, not just for foster parents, but for social services. And so
Right.
social services came to us in Gaston County and said, listen, we have people that say, hey, we'll take care of it. But then at the last minute, they're not able to. And so
Mm.
our social workers are out on Christmas Eve shopping and doing all these things. And so we created a program we call it 12 Hours of Christmas here. It's kind of LOTC Christmas at this point because we have multiple locations that do it. But we're very intentional. So we get the kids' lists and we put that out for the community, and you can sponsor a child and you'll get their list and you can shop, and it's exactly what they've asked for. And so then they turn all those gifts back into us. And then one magical day, actually it's 2 magical days now, 3 if you count Rutherford where we have the other event, then we will serve in our space. We serve usually around 800 kids. Or 900 even, and then at Rutherford they're going to get the rest of those. And so by the end of Christmas, we've served over 1,000 children usually in foster care.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you for what you're doing. Now, very importantly to this conversation, after Helene, you came to Western North Carolina because you saw some special needs here. Tell us more about that.
Well, one thing is important is that we were already serving in Western North Carolina. So we were already getting our bags of hope into Western North Carolina. We don't have a location there, but we have Centos that will drive our bags and deliver them. And
Oh,
we have
wow.
some
That's awesome.
amazing Kia of Asheville. We have and another lots of different dealerships that help us. And so as long as we can get those bags to one of these dealerships, then these foster parents can pick them up. And so we were already in Western North Carolina. We just didn't have an address in Western North Carolina. Still don't. I feel like you can serve from anywhere.
Well, so true,
So
but more today than ever, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But we were really focused on the children that were in foster care, trying to track them down, figure out what they needed. And it really was boots on the ground. The great Greg Biffle, bless his heart. We communicated with him a lot. He helped us a ton to get things where they needed to go.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I guess he flew them and he drove them, and he had quite the effort going on to get hope to a lot of people.
Yeah, he really did. So I met him at his hangar, and we took him things, and he made sure that those things were getting to those folks. And and in the early, right after hurricane, it was literally people on horseback. And we were saying, hey, there's a baby that needs formula. Can you get it to them? And so these I don't even know, honestly, who was on the other end of that text, if I'm being honest, Sharon. But they were just like, we'll take it to them. And I'm like, okay, this is the address. Make sure you go. And so, and then of course, coming away from that, we helped with some rental homes for some foster parents that were being displaced, because the last thing you want to do is displace the kids.
Yes.
The foster parents
Again,
don't have a place
right?
to live.
Yeah.
It's just trauma on top of trauma. And so we just tried to step into the stories that we could and help where we could. Joey Logano Foundation was a huge help. He helped us gift some vehicles to some caregivers up there.
Wow.
Yeah. Because especially if you're a kinship caregiver, that, they didn't have the insurance they needed to have to replace the car. And a lot of them only had one vehicle, and now you don't have any vehicle. And so just honestly, it was an opportunity for at least these Carolinas to reach out to our partners like Joey Logano, like, the different ones, and say, how can y'all help us help Western North Carolina? And they were all very agreeable and wanted to help.
We're so grateful for what you did for us here in the West and what you continue to do, Susanna. To your point, you're in the West and will stay in the West and continue to work all across the Carolinas, and we're grateful for that. But it's also an outreach that always needs support. So if somebody's interested in learning more about the needs that you have, whether it's for contributions or maybe it's for duffel bags, I'm not sure the process for getting those, just have this visual in my mind of a child getting a duffel bag with their name on it and the joy I know that brings for my own children, but for a child that's never had their own little suitcase, that's a pretty beautiful thought. But how could people participate and how could they learn more?
You can just go to our website. It's lotcarolinas.com. One of the things I didn't talk about is we do have a camp just for children in foster care. I mentioned that because it actually is in Wilkes County.
Oh, it
So,
is. So it's in the mountains, so they
yeah,
get that kind of experience too. Good.
yeah. And so we have a camp just for kids in foster care and for them to get the strength that they need to hear other people's story. A lot of these kids, Sharon, think they're the only one. Like, I'm the only one that's in foster care. I don't know anybody else.
Right.
And when they get to camp and there's 150 kids there and they all come from foster care, it's just amazing what happens. They tell their stories. And now that we've been doing camp, this year will be 10 years, we have the alumni from the camps coming back and telling us some really, really powerful stories about how Lisa These Carolinas stepped in through Bridge Camp. And when they had no hope, we were able to offer them some. And so, yeah, so I just shout that out just because it is in Western North Carolina.
And I'm so glad that you shared that specifically, Susanna, because I'll have some folks say to me as I've talked with nonprofits, well, what can a week do for a child? These children have lifelong challenges. It can change a life. For those of us who've had the privilege of being able to send our children to camp and to have that experience of meeting folks that they didn't know before that are just like them. And I think particularly about these children who are in foster care who sometimes feel so alone and unwanted, maybe more specifically, and yet they get into a situation where they find many more children who unfortunately have had the same experience, but there's power in connecting with those that we share some commonality, right?
Absolutely.
And that helps us feel less alone. So if folks wanted to sponsor a child to camp, I'm sure there's a way to do that on your website, or they could express in their contribution that they would be particularly interested in that. Is that the case?
That's absolutely the case.
Good.
And we just had our big fundraiser last night. And so one of our campers was here. Her name is Aliyah. And she shared her story. She's actually at school at Western. So there's another. She's out Western North Carolina. And she became an EMT because her camp counselor was an EMT. And so that gave her hope. And then last night she shared the story publicly for the first time that when she came to camp, she had decided after camp to end her life because she didn't think anybody saw her. Nobody was listening to her. And she said, but the adults at Bridge Camp listened to me and they took me seriously. And that's what gave me hope. And so now she's an EMT. She works in Gaston County with GEMS, but she's at Western North Carolina continuing her education. And so that's the kind of difference that we are starting to see. And we're making the difference that we were hoping, in 2013 when I started this is kind of what we wanted to see, is that this is life-changing. It's not just a bag. And it's not just camp and it's not just Christmas. It's honestly consistently showing up for these children that need us the most.
So important. I was talking with a friend recently and we were talking about, she said, I don't know what I can do. I said, show up. Get in the arena. Maybe it's volunteering with Least of These, Carolina. Maybe it's the opportunity to contribute or to pack bags or any number of things. I know you have a lot of ways that folks can engage. What would you want to tell our viewers that you haven't already shared about your nonprofit?
We do a lot of things throughout the year. I didn't even talk about Shoes of Hope. We make sure they have brand new shoes on their feet before they go back to school. We give free haircuts. I think what I want people to know about Lisa These is that if you are struggling with the fact that you do want to serve these children in some way, but foster parenting not for you, or you're scared to death, or whatever that is, just go to our website, reach out to us. We would love to talk to you and share the stories, but everybody, I believe, can step into these kids' stories in one way or another. And I just want to help people be able to do that. And so maybe they're thinking about serving in a way that's not listed on our website. Reach out to us. We're really great at coming up with creative ways of getting people involved.
Good. I've heard that about you. Somebody said, don't call her if you don't want to get involved in this because she is so passionate about it. But isn't that what we want? I'm so grateful, Susanna, for what you're doing and for the love you're sharing with these children through your own family, through your own example. This isn't just something you do as a job or an outreach that you saw as important. You actually, as a family, have committed to foster care for many years now. I thank you for that. And I thank you for sharing the love that you found in that process with so many other people. Our children are the the beneficiaries for that. I encourage everyone to look on this post. You'll have all the information about how to get in touch with Susanna, how to volunteer with them, how to make a contribution. And I would say also to pray for the children that they're working with and for the stamina and strength for parents who take these children in. It truly is a gift of love to be a foster parent, but it does change children's lives, Susanna, and we thank you for what you're doing to make such a difference. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so grateful for what you have been doing in Western North Carolina, particularly after Helene, but every day. Just thank you so much. Hope that folks will see this and join in the fun.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks so much for joining us this week for the Sharon Decker podcast, where, once again, we've shared what we love, where we love, and the people we love in Western North Carolina. Join us next week, too. And in the meantime, you'll find us at SharonDecker.com or on Instagram at TheSharonDecker.